for the lovely demo. Coming up next is a panel discussion on dealing with next generation security threats. Allow me to please invite the panelists onto the stage. Mr. Ashwani Tikoo. Ashwani, as the CIO for CSC India, is responsible for driving IT strategy, innovation and cost-effective service delivery across the business in India, in accordance with CSC's Global Office of the CIO. He manages the overall provisioning of IT services for CSC India. May I also request Mr. Ravinder Singh, Director Sales, Juniper Networks, to please come on the stage. Mr. Kapil Mehrotra. Kapil is the Head Integration at Apollo Munich, having over 16 years of experience in ERP, Oracle Financials, IT applications and infrastructure, service delivery, CRM, information security, audit and compliance, BI program/project management with 10 years of strong work experience in BFSI domain. May I also request Mr. B.M. Rangan, Senior VP and CISO at Quattro Global Services, to please come on the stage. The core of Mr. Rangan's experience is conceptualizing and executing management projects that are critically linked to the organization's realizing its strategic role. He is also a Six Sigma Master Black Belt with deep expertise in Japanese management methodologies. Welcome, panelists. So I would like to open up the discussion with a very relevant question, which I feel is at the top of the mind of every security practitioner. Ravinder, where do you see information security headed, and what are its implications for security practitioners?
Well, I think today we are living in times where the concept of information security has completely changed. Especially after what has happened in the last 1 year about the regulations, what the US government is doing, or any government is planning to do or are doing. So with that respect, you really feel that everything is so transparent. Whatever you're doing, what is public, what is private, and to whom it is private, to whom it is public. Nobody knows, right? So suddenly there is a sense of awareness which was not there earlier. Earlier, whatever you were thinking private was private. Right? Now nothing is private. Now in that sense, suddenly there is a discussion happening that what is my private data, what is the data which is most critical to me, and how do we safeguard it? If you see a practical world, suppose you are traveling, you are going to a market, and you try to be aware of pickpocket and try to safeguard yourself by putting a purse somewhere, right? And same way, compare that situation with the bank, vault, where there is a huge gold line, or the country's security is an issue. At that time, how do we plan the security for both? So an organization is getting more, aware about the criticality of data, and seeing that, and the cloud is coming parallelly, and then there is the applications coming up, then there is a mobile devices coming up, and suddenly you know that this thing is anyway going on in the governments. So the whole lot, you need to see what is my business critical data, and how do I safeguard that, and the whole investments about the whatever expertise we can garner from anywhere in the world. The organizations are thinking whether it's encrypting their data, whether it is devising their own encryption, whether it is so any level, organizations would go to protect the data. And the hackers are not looking for the military data across the world. They're looking for IPRs. They're looking for corporate data. Even if they're hacking the military organizations, but they are hacking for the IPR, not for the secrets of the battlefield. Right? That's a change scenario. So I think any kind of technology, whichever helps the organization or the user, I think the user and organizations are really open about, genuinely open these times.
Right. Yeah. So the line between private and public information is blurred.
I think,
how do you see that?
Very rightly said. We don't know. I must be, having all paraphernalia in my traditional way we used to have, and a false sense of security. we're saying that I have done this, I have done that, I have, traditionally, if I name those things, I get a sense of security, though I've taken all the steps, and those things are absolutely no good in today's world about various things, as he pointed out, the economic value of that particular sabotage or anything like that is what interests them. I believe they would, also care for some military stuff as well, perhaps. So, but how do you kind of monetize those things? Economic value derived out of that. You are able to get a blueprint of a particular new things which is done by a rival. How you are getting access to it, and without spending a penny, you are able to roll out a thing which is kind of their years and years of research has gone down the drain because you kind of hit the market first and you kind of have the various patents drawn upon that and things like that. So, yeah, the world has completely turned on its head in terms of the security. The way, what we think, in my personal view, is that you can't protect each and everything in the world. You need to very closely look at what is your core that you want to guard. You kind of need to define layers of how do you want to treat your information assets. What is that is absolutely public is public. How do you get to one level below, one level below, one level below, and what is the absolute core? And I would have, put all my calories in the direction of, in the order of priority. Look at core, make sure that to the most possible extent go and secure that, and relax the norms as you go towards the periphery.
Sure.
That's what I just.
So the traditional way of securing your enterprise are passing.
Absolutely. It gives us a false sense of security. You say, oh, you were in a room and you were in a unidirectional mirror room.
Sure.
You didn't know that mirror everybody else could see you, but you had a false sense of security that you are in a changing room and nobody's looking at you.
Right. Sir, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with much of what Ravinder and Ashwani said. And they put it as a difference between public and private information. But let me put it another way. I think it is a difference between transparency and intrusion. So, and I think that is kind of definitely blurring. So, what is transparent and what is intrusion is kind of becoming less and less, more and more amorphous. Now, therefore, and I actually don't need to know a lot about you. I only need to know a little bit about you, and I can build an entire profile about you. For example, that's what I think something like big data does. It kind of takes a little bit of information and builds a lot about it. And for example, if I know somebody's phone number and address, so I know what kind of profile, what kind of person I'm talking about, even if I don't know much more about him. So in this environment, what do you protect? Obviously, the question is that you have limited budgets with which to protect, and therefore it is important. I think it's more important for security professionals to think like business professionals and understand which one of this information can give somebody a bang for the buck, and which one of this information, it's good to protect, but it is not so important. Therefore, focusing budgets, I think, on protection of information is now very important, and understanding the genuine value of information in terms of what its payoffs are.
Sure.
Yeah, my perspective is, data is a new kind of oil actually, which is filling everywhere. So we have to secure. All the CIOs, CEOs and CEO, they are worried about that, how to secure it. I'll take a couple of examples like where they tried a lot but they are not able to. We put the best solutions, but still we are not. We look for another solution, we look for the best solutions. So what we have to do is we have to categorize. We know there is a security required, but we cannot implement entire security in day one. What we have to do, we have to form a threat model as per the business. Because if I want to bring the security in my organization, what value my business is going to get out of it, right? If I can have the best of the best solution, probably that will choke my network. That will delay, there will be latency of my applications, right? So if you talk for the security, there you have to define a framework which has to be viable and easily get through in the organization. if you put the best solution and which has some problems, probably everyone will come with the exceptional approval. Please open this port. This application works on this port, and then you are basically opening more vulnerability. So your framework has to be stronger enough, and you have to think about it. What has to be fly in one go and foolproof? That is what is my perspective.
As Mr. Rangan just said, the budgets are limited. So the big question in front of CISOs or enterprise security practitioners is how much to spend and where. So Ashwani, would you?
Absolutely important. I think no unlimited budget, so anybody is, we don't need not to guess. In fact, budgets are kind of tanking, and we're getting slices off the thing. There are many reasons. One is the economic downturn that is driving that, and the cost-saving initiatives and stuff like that. A lot of our budget also gets actually into different buckets. For example, some marketing-related activity, which IT has become so commoditized these days. It is, they tell me that they could take out a credit card out of the pocket, and here's how I consume my service. Swipe a card, get a service where it impacts your budget. That much portion which you used to kind of keep close to your heart and you had a control over it is anyways going off. So, but yes, there are the baseline things which are part of the overall the CIO's budget and control. So it is absolutely essential. As I said, that we need to put our calories where you really want to and define the framework that how are you going to approach it. Especially in various APT threats and stuff like that, and how much would you want to invest in that? How much and how do you classify and actually have a solution which works seamlessly, but there's a graded and layered approach to that.
Right.
So there are many. I was looking at some data on the internet. It was just talking about 10% of your budget to 25% of your budget. Okay, that is the kind of variation you see in various organizations of the IT budget I'm talking about. So, which is directed towards security. That depends on which part of how kind of aware you are about these things and how much you are willing to spend to make sure that your information assets are appropriately assessed. That is the range that I was doing a little bit of research, and that's what I saw.
Sir, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of say that I keep coming back to the point that yes, because budgets are limited and organizations are saying that are you sure you want to protect all of this? If so, why? I think there is the perception of threat needs to be much more granularly resolved. At a superficial level, everything looks vulnerable. Everything looks a high threat. But in reality, it is not the case. For example, some of the controls, even in the security controls, the security professionals that we put, it is kind of, when we think a little deeper about it, you start thinking that, okay, so what is the point in putting this control? So how is it going to protect my information any better than if this control was not there? Okay, and we know that controls cost money. They don't come, they don't grow on trees, so, they do cost money. So, given that, I think it's important to kind of do a pretty diligent exercise on what is the value of information that you have, who has access, why does this person have access, to do those basics and then kind of put the controls that you want. It is not about deploying a lot of technologies. I feel it is not about deploying a lot of technologies, and sometimes there is a technology deluge. And you feel very happy that you have deployed all these technologies and and you have all the answers. But I don't know, it may be a power hammer to drive a small nail. Maybe it is not required. Therefore, I think it is important to look at information granularly to see what is it that I am protecting, what is the value of this information, what can be the regulatory risk, what can be the business risk. So what can be the insider risk on this, and then apply a control and therefore direct it.
I was just adding, very aptly said, many times you do put technology for sake of technology. You need to see, the analogy is there, you build a wall and you leave a gaping hole there, and it is evident, that entire wall is not going to help until unless you kind of have closed the whole perimeter, and you left a big gaping hole. There's no use of that wall to be put in place. So you spent that much money, but you didn't get any desired result, and I think that's absolutely right. You should not go and deploy certain things just for the sake of doing and fancy things and things like that. There should be a business need approach on that, and which aptly pointed by him is that how do you actually see end to end, as the cliche statement says that the chain is as strong as the weakest link. So that is perhaps we need to keep in mind.
Kapil, where do you think should CISO spend? And do you feel that the 10 to 25% figure that Ashwani just mentioned, is that enough, or do you want that to go up, or what are your thoughts on the budget?
I want to add one perspective here. Reason is because I was reading a survey, and that survey clearly says what they have done is they have taken 25 companies for that survey, and those are attacked. Those are heavily attacked, right? And out of 7 percent companies, they said they attacked by once, and rest of them continuously, twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times. So my perspective is, for security, we should not look for budget. We have to create the budget. It is required. If 25 top companies they are attacked, even for once, means data loss, brand loss, right? So we should not wait for the budget or percentage for the budget. We have to create the budget immediately. That's a call we have to take it. Management has to take it. So generally what we do is, let's say the security is not in the roadmap of this year, but I know there is a threat. My business require protection. So should I wait for the next year? I have to create immediately a new budget, and we have to incorporate, implement policy, product, whatever can protect it to business. This is what is asked.
So, APTs is a new buzzword these days. It's opened up a new threat for CISOs. Ravinder, you interact with a lot of security practitioners. How do you feel APT is impacting them, and how are they tackling it?
See, I think one of the biggest threat is APT, and we all acknowledge that. And no amount of technology can give a sense of security against APT. It is something which we have seen in the Stuxnet, we have seen in so many biggest attacks happen across the globe. That APT is here to stay, and that is the way it will scale up in many different dimensions, which we can't even imagine sitting here today. Every attack, gives a new thing, as you see in the physical world as well, right? And then you learn and then you apply the techniques. The only thing, what I believe, as is being clearly explained here, the people, because it is the people, which is the attack of APT to start with. The psyche of people is very important. How do they view security? It is not only a CISO's job. It has to go beyond, and they should be aware about the implication of their actions, right? And a sense of what is going on in the PC. I was talking to Sunil, and clearly he pointed out that there are freeware tools which can be downloaded, which can give you an awareness of what's happening in the PC, for example. So that is on the freeware side of it. But there are professional tools by which an organization, a user can know, okay, by this action, the result can be this much, and this can be this much damaging. In fact, there is an innovative idea by an organization, kind of war games. What they do? They typically have the attacks generated by the vendor, and they say that, and then they see the behavior of the users, and the moment they behave, they categorize some percentage who behaved in a particular fashion, and they get them in the room and try to explain them the implication of their actions. So if you are able to cover, many scenarios like this, like you do in the fire drill, for example, the psychology, that gets driven, and that's extremely important from the APT at a root level.
Right. So simulating attacks is one of the strategies that a CISO could adopt.
I think I would really appreciate which he brought into, which I keep talking and in various forums within the organization also. Really appreciate. Security is not security guy's business. It is every single person's business in that organization. So it has to be inculcated in their DNA. That threat becomes more pronounced with the demographic age factor of our people, various inquisitiveness thing would have. It becomes much more pronounced than a behavioral thing. If you compare our think with the Western counterparts that we have. We have a lot of turbulence in environment here, which could be very detrimental for the overall stability stance of the organization. Those things that, sensitize them. Education is a great medium where you have to not only do that, what we do is that we have a yearly mandatory, some trainings that have to be done by every single person, whether that is is new or old in the organization. You have to go through that cycle, you have to reiterate, you have to sign digitally saying you have done this. They give you various scenarios. They will say a situation like this, which is a
Map with the roadmap plus business, right? It should not like that. Like I have enough budget. I'm a very good company, having 100 crore budget in my pocket. I can buy any tool, right? This should not. Whatever I really require, I have to see the pattern. How many attacks I have been. If there is no pattern, it means we are still not visible. So we can have some space, still some breathing space of the business. We can talk with the business whether things can be compromised at this stage or not, or this is the right stage. We have to do brainstorm. It's not one man opinion. I'm a CIO or CISO of this organization. This organization is requires something. We have to do it. This should be open. We have to throw some ideas to the open forum and we discuss, debate, and then operate. This is what is Juniper. Sir?
I think one of the things that I would be very proud of as a practice is the Security Council that we have. It's called the Quattro Security Council, and therefore the reason why I'm saying this is because it is the governance of security, which is kind of very visibly seen, because the Security Council has got all the business leaders in it. The chairperson of the Security Council reports to the board. Okay, so it's a kind of it's a visible signal to the organization that security is taken seriously. Therefore, there is indeed a discussion on security incidents, and it is kind of very religiously held, once a quarter at least, and maybe more frequently. So that I find is a practice that has held us in good stead for some time now. And the other one is, of course, about access control, building awareness, education, ensuring, like Ashwani said, digitally signing up. I've understood this beyond just signing up. These are some of the things that I think of.
If I can, get attention back to the APD question that you said. See, the thing is that there has to be a multi-pronged approach in the security, how you handle that, how your security framework works and how people. They're not going to work in the traditional way or only getting into a predictive mode and do that. It's a combination of both. How you are actually correlating information which is coming in from various inputs, and then you are driving. There are going to be huge number of false positives. How don't you get into an overdrive when you start consuming a lot of your energy and you're not actually getting through you're still having a lot of noise there. How do you clear that out? How do you get to real action? And how do you learn on a continuous basis? As you are aware, the APT stuff goes through a life cycle. There is a 5-stage cycle it goes through. How do you manage that through its life cycle? Because the sooner you detect it, lesser damage is going to cause you. How are you building systems which might not be able to stop at layer 1? The moment it starts getting into layer 2, you should have the traditional signature-based stuff doesn't work. How do you have those dynamic ways doing that and correlate those? The moment you get something, put it on a trail, then watch continuously. The behavioral thing, get the noise out. Those are the things that I would, suggest that's my thought process, how it has to be approached, and that's what we try to do. There is a specific group within our organization that's called TIG, the Threat Intelligence Group, which works specifically dedicated only one motto that they have. How do they add all of that? More information you have, more things that come to you, it helps you to organize yourself better against that threat. And also we are part of a larger, through our connections in the federal business, we are part of a larger group, which is a core sensitive small group, where you get information which comes in from various government sources also, because they have a huge machinery. You cannot have a machinery of your own and you can fight against it. You need to see how that collaboration happens, then you are much better equipped to handle those things. You know, so it is everybody's input coming and everybody in that group gets benefited because they get information about that much in advance than the larger public gets. That's a few things.
Ravinder,
Yeah,
what would be some of the best practices?
I'd like to contribute that since we work with many customers across the globe,
Right.
and such kind of models, are there in the places, and any customers also try to make their own unique models, right? And in addition to that, what we are trying to do, we are trying to form a center which is basically about capturing all the best practices, or essentially, the beginning is on a very small level. We're trying to create the database of the hackers, for example. And the starting is there, but the vision of this model is to capture the best practices and make security also in a managed services kind of a practice as you go forward. But starting point is wherever we learn about some hacking practice on the basis of fingerprint that we talked about, we create a database, we create a reference, and when we go, we sell that as a service. So it is not a reinventing of wheel for every customer. When they are trying to implement those practices. So it is something which is done anywhere in the globe. That thing should be matched. Then and there. Or the pattern should be seen that this can be malicious. So it saves a lot of effort and money for the customer at that time. It becomes a service for it, right? And the scaling for that model is huge. So I think that is the key beginning Juniper did last year, and we are moving very well. The reception from the customers is huge, and we believe we want to capture it, taking it beyond just the hackers. I want to take it from the model's perspective later on.
That's exactly true. We as a service provider and as a cybersecurity group, the customers get benefit of a lot of effort which has gone, as you rightly pointed out, without spending too much on that.
Great. So with this, I would like to bring this panel discussion to a close. Thank you, Kapil. Thank you, Mr. Rangan. Thank you, Ashwani. Thank you, Ravinder. So we will break for lunch at this point of time, and we will initiate the next discussion in 45 minutes. So I request you to please reassemble in 45 minutes time. Thank you.